let me just try to let me try to break it down real quick.
Okay,
Okay.
break it down for me.
You have somebody in your workplace that's a real leader that everybody looks up to, that exhibits good qualities, right?
Yeah.
You would elect them to city council, and then that city council selects people from amongst itself to send up to the higher body, and then that process repeats, so on and so forth, until you get to like Xi Jinping or whatever, right? That's kind of what I mean.
So you want to go back to the founding of the nation?
I guess if that's the founding of the nation.
Well,
Well, no, because
if
because
the
at the beginning
idea,
the
yeah,
senators were appointed by the state legislature
that's what you just said.
and the
That
president.
that's what you just said. You just said that if we get to the city council, promotes the next guy to the next tier, and then they send another guy up the next tier. Those would be the guys who would be sending in your representative. Is that not correct?
Yeah, if it all starts with the workers with universal suffrage, then that's good.
So to get this
Yeah.
right, let's just say that.
But
Hang on.
if it's how,
So
like
to
at the
get this
beginning of
right,
America, if it's just like white men with property, I would obviously not
yeah,
be
yeah.
for
But let's
that
just
kind of
but here's the
system.
thing. It's so funny here. Is like, okay, so under your system, what you're proposing is this: that the states send representatives to the government because it goes through a tiered system where you elect your shop foreman as a city
Hold on a
councilor.
second.
So under this system, you would elect your shop foreman to city council, which you could do right now. And then they would then make appointments to higher positions than them from that council all the way up. How is this
Mhm.
system actually any different right this second? This sounds like the exact same system that we have, except this. You're proposing a tiered system of, what I would say is a prestige tiered system. So if it goes to the oligarchs, or in this case, the council then promotes the next guy, and then that team of people promotes the next guy, et cetera, et cetera. All you've actually done is circulated from the Democrat base, the people, from actually voting the representatives in that they want. Isn't that a worse system for communism?
No, I don't think it is. The difference is that the people that get elevated do not get elevated on the basis of their ability to get capital to run in these elections. And they
How do
don't have
you how do
lobbying
you
or
think
anything like that.
people
If
how do you
they
think
if
people
they
get
are
elected, dude?
receiving, well, dude, let me finish.
Okay,
And
go
if
ahead.
they are taking like bribes, for example, what we would call lobbying, it's legal here. If they're taking bribes, they get they get punished for that. Like in China, they take you out behind the woodshed, bury you under the jail for things like that. So sorry to interrupt you.
Unless it's the CCP who's getting bribed, then they
Well,
don't
no,
do any of that.
they do that for party members all the time who engage in corruption.
No, well, the thing is that there's a certain amount of corruption which is allowed within the CCP by the party leaders. They're all splitting treasure amongst themselves. That is the epitome of corruption. But by the way, let's just point this out. All you're promoting here is a prestige system. You're saying that once the councilman is elected, that council then gets to elect the next guy, and then that next tier gets to elect the next guy. How is that a better system from a communist perspective than the people themselves just collectively voting on whoever they want to vote for whatever office they want?
Again, yeah, it would be better because they don't have to amass influence and capital from like the private sector to do so.
They would still have to amass it.
They are
Yeah, they still
elevated by
would.
their compatriots on the basis of their merit.
Okay, so then how would the city council get money?
Probably from the federal government or equivalent.
And how would the federal government collect revenue?
Now you're asking me about like how the revenue system would
I'm
work.
just asking
Well, we
you how the
well
federal government would collect revenue under
how
your
it works right
system.
now is that we print money and then distribute that money,
Yeah, fiat
and then we
currency. I
tax
agree.
later, and then we run deficits because we don't tax as much as we spend.
I agree. All that's
So
true.
it could
Are you
work
going
like
to
pretty
assess
similar to
taxes?
that.
Are you? What I'm asking is the federal government going to assess taxes against individuals, and then with the tax assessment, distribute it how they see fit?
Well, no government works like that. It's you print the money first and then tax later.
Yeah. Okay. Sure, but you're still taxing the citizenry. But let's just say under your perfect form of government, we're not printing money we don't have. How's the federal government collecting money exactly?
No, we will be printing money we don't have. Every government works like that.
Okay, so how's the federal
Yeah.
government collecting money under this system?
The same way that it does now.
The same way it does now. So they're going to be
Yeah.
collecting, so they're going to be taxing the citizenry, and then the citizenry is only able to vote for localized politicians and send those localized politicians to the next tier, and then the next tier, and then the next tier, and the next tier in your system. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Okay, so I just correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't understand how that's not just amassing power structures of bribery. I don't actually understand this. You're actually creating a caste system.
Bribery is illegal.
Yeah, but well, it's illegal if the law is enforced, right? Like every law. But
Yeah.
isn't what you're doing just creating a caste system of nobility?
No, because it's based on merit. Anybody can rise through the ranks and become known in their community and be elevated to these positions, and then they become known in the community of the party people. Like did you know that most Communist Party members are themselves workers? They're not full-time party members, right? Like within
Where
the lowest level of the
where?
Chinese Party Congress kind of thing.
Yes, they are. Many of
No,
them
they're
are
not.
full-time
They
propagandists. Yes, they are.
no, that's
Yes.
incorrect.
Yes. No, it's not. It's not incorrect. The truth is,
It
you're
is
you're
incorrect.
actually falling here for classic propaganda. So it's always the case that
No.
the politicians want to make the bid for the working class, and so many of them will always act as though they're the blue collar person, et cetera, when they're actually not. But in this system, I'm just really curious. How is it that we're stopping corruption here?
Because if you give somebody money or material reward for favors, that is illegal. It's illegal in China.
Yeah, it's
Um,
illegal. It's illegal here too.
and if we find you doing that, well, no, because
Yeah. Yes.
they do it in the form of campaign donations. After you get out of Congress, like Kristen Sinema, for example, she's going to work for a lobbying firm.
True.
Stuff like that is against the law. Yeah, we're not going to allow that.
So we're going to get rid of the lobbyists. We're going to get rid of the NGOs.
Yeah,
So
pretty much.
China doesn't have lobbyists and it doesn't have NGOs.
That certainly doesn't have lobbyists. Yeah, I'm sure it has NGOs that do various things.
It has
Um,
a massive lobbying party.
what is the massive lobbying party?
Yeah. So the CCP itself actually hires lobbyists to lobby, of course, other nations. But there's lobbying firms inside of China itself trying to get various officials into positions of power. They just do it through non-governmental organizations, and they use backdoor bribery.
Okay, can you give me an example of that?
Yeah, sure. 1 second.
Sure. I just think this is a better system, folks.
Based
You
on
know,
what, dude?
it's based on merit. It's based on, starting off with people who are prove useful to their local communities. And then you don't have this thing where um, these politicians are constantly worrying about their next election and how they're going to raise money for their next election. I think that's better.
Yeah.
Um,
So the CCP, they use actually a ton of these. So let's talk about front organizations first. Let's talk about the
sure.
United Front Work Department and its affiliated organizations. Are you familiar with the United Front Work Department?
No, what is it?
Well, so what happens is the CCP is they're overseeing these kind of various departments of the state. You agree with that, right? Critical for state infrastructure, or state security, or things like this. And so,
Sure.
yeah, well, what happens is those companies still amass a great amount of power, and they're able to filter money through NGOs, which are then, again, lobbying directly these government officials in order to get their people in power in the inner circle of the CCP. It's the same exact thing here. It's just done slightly differently.
When is the money exchanging hands?
Well, the problem is that it exchanges hands through things like money laundering. Why do you think so many of these CCP officials make a very low salary but are filthy and rich? Why do you think that is?
Like at what stage does the money change hands is my question.
Well, it depends on which official we're talking about and which specific circumstance. But
Okay.
the fact of the matter is that how does a person who's of relatively low means join the CCP and become extremely rich? Can you explain that to me? What do you think the process there is? They just suddenly become really good at business?
Yeah, I mean, experts are
Yeah.
rewarded for their expertise, of course.
Real experts are rewarded for their expertise.
Yeah.
Um, so you think that they, even though they receive a very minimal salary from the CCP, but they make millions of dollars through business interests that the state's not assisting them through backdoor means of, I don't know, fixing contracts and various things like this that they get kickbacks from?
I don't think that that occurs in China, Andrew,
Bro,
because that's
you
illegal. They
you
put
have
people
got to be one of the
over
most
that, dude.
naive people that I've ever talked to if you think that that's not occurring, not just in
Great,
China,
Andrew.
but in every nation.
Love the ad hom. Okay.
Well, that's not an ad hom. I'm directly giving you an argument and calling you naive. An ad hom would be if I was only attacking you and not the argument. I'm attacking the argument and calling you naive.
As far as I'm aware, if you exchange money for political favors in China, that's illegal.
It's
They
illegal
put people
here.
in prison and worse all the time.
It's illegal to exchange political favors for money here.
Not really.
Yeah, really. No. It really is. It really is. Like you can't go. You can't go to your. Can you go to your congressman and say, "I'll give you $10,000 if you sign this bill"? Can you say that or no?
No, but you can say, "I will set up a super PAC to get you elected in the next cycle."
Right. And what is a super PAC? A super PAC is a workaround utilizing NGOs, which then filter money to a campaign, right? Through means basically of not saying this is a direct contribution. Under the CCP, they're doing the exact same thing. They're just doing it through the officials who work in the public works. They're doing the exact same thing. They're bolstering up the people that they want to go in there through their NGOs. They just don't call them super PACs, but it's the same process.
No, not really.
Yeah, really. I just explained it to you.
If you want to set up an organization that goes and talks to lawmakers, as it were, and tries to influence them, I see no problem with that.
All right.
The issue is when you're saying, "I will help you get elected again. I will help you maintain your office."
Let's try this. Let's try a different angle here real quick before we wrap the conversation up, if you don't mind. Let's just start with something. Sure. Yeah, let's just start with something really simple. What are the actions that you want to see right now?
Right now? Yeah, I guess if I had to give you like a top 3, it would be abolish the Federal Reserve. We have a state bank instead of the system of private banks that is the Federal Reserve.
Okay, let's start with that one.
Okay.
We abolish the Fed tomorrow.
All right.
There's no more printing of fiat currency. Now what?
There is printing of fiat currency. It's just in the hands of the state and not the private banks.
It's in the hands of the state now. Congress oversees the Fed.
No.
Yes.
Wrong.
No, not wrong. Oh, can you tell me? Then, real quick, the federal.
You're saying that that the government controls the Federal Reserve, private banks that print all the money?
Yeah. Yes, they have oversight over them. Yes, that's correct. The old Ron Paul, the old Ron Paul line that the Federal Reserve is a private banking institution which has no oversight is actually a complete lie. It is true that it hasn't been audited in a long time, but
it's several private banks that print all our money, and then our government says, "Thanks for lending us this money. We'll pay it back in interest." But of course, we can never do that because we can't. That amount of money doesn't exist because they print all of it.
That's true. They do spend more money than they have. But let me just explain this to you. The Federal Reserve is accountable to Congress, which provides oversight through statutory requirements for semi-annual hearings, regular testimony, and the ability to pass resolutions to influence or disapprove of Fed actions or eliminate the Fed anytime they so choose. They have the power of the purse and always have. What you just said is factually not true. They do have Hang on. Can we agree that they do have regulatory bodies which do indeed have oversight over the Fed?
Sure. Yeah.
Can we agree, for instance, that Trump went to the head of the Federal Reserve and asked him to lower interest rates, for instance?
And they didn't. Yeah.
They did.
They said no thanks.
No, you're wrong. They did. He went in his first term and asked for interest rates to be lowered, and they did lower interest rates.
What word did you just use, Andrew? He what?
He asked him to lower interest rates, which they did. Yes.
Did they have to?
Well, they don't have to, but then they're subject to oversight. Yes.
Then they don't have to. Yeah. I would like Congress to get rid of the Federal Reserve, and then we can have a state bank
Oh,
instead of
okay.
the system of private
So
banks.
you want this the Congress to be back in charge of money, which is constitutional. I actually agree with this stance, by the way,
Cool.
but I'm just wondering
Great.
what that system looks like.
We agree.
No, well, we agree tentatively that abolishing the Fed's a good idea, but what we
Sure.
don't agree with is what we replace that with. That's what I'm asking. What do we replace that with?
A state bank, singular.
Okay, well, but what does that look like?
I don't know.
You don't know.
Imagine a bank, but it's not a private bank. It's actually a part of the government, and they print all the money. That's what it looks like.
Okay, got it.
What does that look like?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would give you like the Jackson banking model. I think would be a really good
No.
one, but that would be you wouldn't probably like that very much because you're a communist. So okay, what's point two? What's the next thing you want to do?
Yeah, I think we need a massive industrial policy, so that we can make things here that are valuable that aren't just debt and data. And the side effect of that would be reproletarianization, where people are actually making things with their hands and are the like traditional proletariat again.
All right, and how do
Um,
we get there?
let's see. Well, I think uh, we should start off by trying to influence the private sector into doing these things, and then if they don't do them how we want them to, then the state should. For example, like we need housing. We gotta see if the private sector will do that, and I don't think that they will, and so we should probably have the state directing housing building, or like
Projects?
semiconductors, for example.
You want
You
the
know,
states to make more projects?
yeah, pretty much.
Have you
Or
ever
like steel, for
have you ever
example.
seen
We
what
should nationalize
have you ever
steel. We
seen
should
what
nationalize
the
rail, water,
yeah, have you ever seen
electricity.
what public housing looks like?
It's not very good because you know why it's not very good is that instead of policing it very heavily, we actually give private individuals, private landlords, money for this public housing.
Is it
I
that, or
live
is it the
next to
case that
Section 8.
many times that people who have no idea how to manage money and don't have very good impulse control instead are the people who are generally the brokest in society and also the people who are the most stricken with mental illness, and we're putting them all in one location, and so they do crazy like rub feces on the wall and break things constantly,
Yeah.
refuse to pay their
And
bills, this type of thing. Why do you think it's a good idea to subsidize that behavior rather than putting people like that in, I don't know, like treatment facilities instead? This would be the better idea, wouldn't it?
well, firstly, when I say build housing, it doesn't need to be all public housing. We can still be, people will acquire it through the equivalent of a mortgage, just a mortgage, stuff like that. Probably have incentives for if you have big families, you get a bigger house
Yeah, but
or
that makes no sense.
things of that nature.
Why would the private
And then for
sector,
the
if there
public
was
housing for
demand,
these extremely
yeah.
poor people, then we should like have like armed guards in
Well, help
every
me out here.
hallway or something.
If the private sector thought that they would make profit by building more houses because more people are demanding them, why wouldn't they?
Well, they actually uh think that they will make more profit if they always have less housing than would meet or exceed
Why
demand.
would contractors give
Like
a shit about
like all
that?
the all the all the conglomeration of uh firms owned by like BlackRock Vanguard, who's bought all these single family homes, they say, well, none of these homes are selling because they're too expensive, but we view that as good. We're gonna hold on to that. Um, Try to not sell all of them at once to drive demand up, and then eventually we'll sell them.
Yeah,
That's
but
what they think.
private contracting firms though have plenty of equity and they have plenty of money and they can buy up land, private land, and they can begin to build housing structures on that land, but they're not. Why do you think that is? Could it be because of how many people default on their mortgages? Could it be because they're set to take some pretty heavy losses? Could it be because they think that the risk far
Yeah,
outweighs
that's
the
probably all
potential
true.
gain? Yeah. So then the thing is that if you can't incentivize the private sector through money to go and build all these new houses that you think that people need and want, because they can't turn any profit. Why do you think the government's going to do a better job? Aren't they just going to basically make these massive low income ghettos like they did before, projects, start building them, run out of money, and then the people who are stuck in them basically live in a hellscape? Isn't that usually how that actually occurs?
Well, firstly, the state doesn't run out of money because they print all the money, as we've discussed. Um,
Local municipalities run out of
and
money constantly, and the state
they
does run
do.
out of money consistently for various projects that they're working on. That happens constantly, especially with the ebb and flow of new administrations who want to reallocate budgetary concerns to other things which are more important.
True. Yeah, we do have a problem with like lack of planning. None of these I think the president should be at least a 10-year term so that we can actually get stuff done.
What?
But what was your question?
My question is, why do you think that if you can't incentivize people to build housing and private property where they stand to make a ton of money, why do you think the government is going to be able to allocate property in such a way where they're going to be able to solve for housing?
The state is able to do things that the private sector cannot do,
Like,
like build housing, apparently.
so but hang on, why again? That just begs a
And I
question.
hope,
That's just begging the question back and not answering it. Why,
sure.
if you think there's a housing crisis and people are demanding homes and want to pay for them, why would the private sector not provide those homes in exchange for that money? That makes no sense, dude. There must
Well,
be
they're
other
demanding
contributing
right now. They're
factors, right?
demanding way more money than people have. I mean, around where I am, it's like $2 million for one of these starter ranch homes that you could maybe raise one kid in. And as you and me both know, we want people to be replacing themselves, right? So we need people with housing that they can raise at least two kids in, right?
Yeah, so the government's going to build what, track
Yeah,
homes?
something like that. I
And
don't
then
know.
are they
Maybe
going to
cheap.
sell them at a
In
loss?
China, they have like way more housing than they need, so the prices are always low. And hopefully, if we reindustrialize stuff, people will have good jobs that aren't like working at Target. They can afford a mortgage.
Yeah, but this actually still doesn't actually answer the question, right? If there's a demand for houses, there's not enough houses for people. The private sector would definitely organize to build houses for profit. Plenty of them have tons of cash, and I'm not even talking about billionaires or people who have tons of millions, but just a few $1 million in the bank. They would just build the housing and sell it and make a load of money because they've done it before. So what do you think the cause is there that's preventing that?
Other than the causes that we've already discussed, we have like a service economy where people are making bad wages because they aren't actually producing any value. And so I want to produce a lot of value
You want
in
to
this
know the real
country. I want
reason?
to
The
produce
real reason
things.
is because rural
Let me know.
housing is readily available for most people and they simply don't want to commute. The number
Yeah,
one reason why it is that people
sure.
don't get into houses isn't because there's not plenty of housing, because there actually is. It's that they don't want to live in more rural communities where the housing is much more affordable because then they'll have to commute for 40 minutes to an hour to work. It's really that simple. It's a gauge of selfishness, bro. They just don't want to do the commute.
Well, yeah, they want to live in a vibrant community where they can know their
So you're going to be
neighbors. They can
building inner
walk down the
city
street,
housing.
buy
Do
buy
you
some
see what I'm saying?
flowers.
Like you're going to be building
Not for
inner city
everybody,
housing.
but a lot of people do want to live in the city.
Yes, they do. So you're gonna be building public housing. Public housing in the city. What do we call
It's
that? The
not all of
ghetto.
it,
We
Andrew.
call it the ghetto,
Some
bro.
of it will be non-public housing that people will be paying mortgages on their property.
That
Um,
the go- so
and then
the
the
so you want the
rest who
government to
are,
build
these
houses?
like poor lumpen kind of people, I'm not going to deny that there's a sizable portion of those types in our society. They would pay rent, they could have this public housing. But every time they leave their door, there's going to be like a cop there, making sure they don't uh, do anything that they shouldn't be doing.
So you want so so your idea here is that you're going to make basically prison camps, right? So you're going to put
No,
the people who have the least amount of cash all in a singular location, and then you're going to make sure that there's tons and tons and tons of cops around. That's the goal.
I just believe in law enforcement and secure societies. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great, but that doesn't translate well to I want to have the government build a ton of public infrastructure inside of major metropolitan areas because we already know what those are. They're called ghettos. That's what they are.
Why
Section
are
8
they ghettos,
housing.
Andrew?
Because you're taking the poorest people who exist and putting them all in a single location. And so what ends up happening is those people then become trapped on. So here's how this works. Let's say you were really poor and you moved into a public housing unit that had jobs locally sourced for you. and then that economy goes belly up. There's no more job for you to commute to. What do you think happens to those people inside those housing projects who can't get out of there? What do you think happens?
What happens when the economy goes belly up?
No. The local economy goes belly up. So, like something really simple, like
Yeah, that would be bad.
In Detroit, for instance, they had a big automotive boom, and that's what brought a lot of people into a lot of the housing which was there. After the automotive
Sure.
boom went away, it destroyed so many of the jobs which are there. These people were destitute overnight. They turned to Section 8 housing, especially the community. They turned to Section 8, public housing, things like this. Well, now they're poor and they're all in one location. How do you think they're going to act?
My solution would be to not let the auto manufacturing move to Mexico or China or Korea or whatever.
How are you going to do that without
Um,
tariffs?
and well, I'm for tariffs.
So you want to
Some
tariff everything?
done
You
smartly.
don't sound like much of a
Um,
communist here, bro. You sound more
well,
like
that's what I'm.
you
I'm
sound more
kind of
like
trying
you
to.
want to move towards MAGA or
I'm.
something
I'm
similar on the
trying
right.
to. I'm trying to maybe communicate with you a little bit that I think the one of my other prompts that I do is the left needs to be destroyed. The left sucks. They're all liberal. And what this kind of things I'm expressing here to you are like would not be looked at as weird by most communists that aren't in America.
Well, why
But
don't you
most
just
communists in
abandon
America would call me like a
So I
fascist.
don't get it. Why don't you just abandon communism, move to libertarianism? They want the same things you do. They want staunch law
No,
enforcement,
no,
community organization, the abolishment of the Federal Reserve, and the abolishment of widespread crony capitalism. And those are the
I
things you
don't
seem
think
to
that
be
they
against.
do. No,
Yeah,
I don't think that they do
I
want
know
those things.
their positions inside and out. They want, like what you
Okay.
said when you said, if everybody privately held their own company, that would be private ownership of the means of production. Libertarians would agree with that. They would be like, yeah,
I
everybody should own their own
you're
company based.
that is not socialism.
Yeah, I know it's not. What I'm saying is you don't sound like much of a socialist.